Hello crafty cuties! In this video I'm going to be finishing up the June mail, but I'm actually going to be talking about something completely different. This is just something for you to look at while I answer questions that I had previously asked on a few of my posts. And I have divided the questions up into 3 different videos. So for this video I'm going to be answering questions that pertain on the art of journal making and crafting, but the next 2 videos I'm going to be answering questions about Etsy, selling, and more like the business aspect of it. So I'm just going to jump right into the questions. I have a lot, so it might not match up with exactly what I am talking about that you see me crafting, right now or doing on the screen. But let's just get started. The first question is from Jenny Adams. She says, when you make a journal, do you have a set routine? For example, 3 pockets, 2 belly bands, etc. per signature? I don't anymore. However, I did used to have what I called my perfect journal formula. And I actually searched to try to find those videos. I couldn't find them, but I'll try to keep searching because I had a very specific way that I did like to put my journals together, and it really helped me out in the beginning because it was a formula that I knew worked for me and it was just easy to do every single time. But again, I don't really have a formula now. I just kind of go with the flow, but I do find that helps in the beginning, and if I can find one of those videos, I will go ahead and put that down below for you guys. The next question's from Amanda. She says, how do you break into making a journal when you want to, but you're stuck and don't know where to start? I actually deal with this a lot, whether, you guys see the videos, you almost see like the best of me. I do try to keep in mistakes and things like that, but I don't always show things when a video just doesn't work out because I'm stuck on ideas. But what I usually do is I turn to YouTube for inspiration. I look on Pinterest for different pictures and things like that. And then Instagram is probably where I get the best inspiration. And I will usually just get, some type of an idea from that. And then it helps me get started a little bit better. So that's what works for me. Hopefully you can try the same. And if you are stacking up too many ideas, and they're just stacking up and you're like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do this, I say you just have to go. You have to force yourself to get started. Otherwise, your whole crafting life is really just going to be admiring other people's work. And, I think the important thing is for you to be creating. From Deborah, she says, I want to incorporate my watercolor sketch pads into one book. Do you have any suggestions? And I clarified, she was talking about like her blank sketch pads and watercolor paper, I believe. And to be honest, I wanted to include this question, but I don't really have a good answer. My only thought is that it might be really cool to make a larger journal, like almost like a coffee table style journal. I don't know if I've ever made a large book like that, but I have seen other YouTubers do something like that, and because I'm assuming these papers are going to be quite larger, so I would maybe just try something like that, but I don't have a specific idea for you. From Kathleen Renee, she says, my printer doesn't do a good enough job printing digitals. Is there somewhere that you'd recommend me to get them printed? I don't want to buy a new printer. And yes, I dealt with this before. I just recently got my newest printer, and I have got things printed at like the FedEx printers, and I think there's another one that's just like a basic, maybe it's not FedEx, but like an Office Depot. And I've always had really good luck. Along with that, if you get something printed and you're not happy, I'm certain that, you can return them. You don't have to pay for the prints. But I did know of one online place where I used to get my digitals printed, but it was a larger scale, and I think it was called Printing Today. And so if you want to get like 100 pages printed at a time, the price was really good on something like that. So you could search around, but I've never really had a place that I wasn't happy with. Lacecoveredskies, who's so sweet, says, do you find it hard to be a mom, be creative, and do all things YouTube, Patreon, TikTok, IG? Oh my! You seem to juggle it all so well. Well, thank you so much. That's very sweet, but it is hard and it is stressful at times. And when it becomes stressful, I take a break and step back. And you guys might not notice that I'm taking a break because I do pre-film most of my videos. During my daughter's nap time, I typically film up to 3 videos, and so I always have like a stockpile of videos, so it might not look like I'm taking a break, but there's several times during a week where I'm just like, okay, can't do it today, and I take a break. But on top of that, I wanted to be specific and just tell you guys that I only have about a 4-hour time during a day where I am what I call working, which is filming, doing Patreon, working on all of that type of thing. And that's because I only craft during my daughter's nap time, and she naps for 3 hours a day. And on top of that, I will sometimes get a little bit of time in the morning or evening, maybe while she's playing. Alistair does school at home, but he is also playing with her a lot. And so I say 4 hours because I really only work about 3 hours during her nap, and then maybe a half hour in the morning and a half hour in the evening. I very, very rarely would work after dinner and bedtime. I'm just tired by the end of the day. I'm a real person, and so I don't do any work or crafting after. So I guess I do feel like I do a pretty good job at balancing it, but I don't always feel like I'm doing a good job balancing it. I rely on my husband a lot. He cooks, he cleans. He works a full-time job, and he also has a DJ business, but he's been working from home since the pandemic and everything's been happening, and he hasn't really been doing much of his DJ business. And so I'm very lucky that he is very willing to do a lot of the housework as what am I trying to say? As well, because we're a team, and he doesn't expect me to do it all. He sees that I'm working as well, and so without his help, I wouldn't be able to do that. I'm trying really hard not to take too long on each question, but I want to answer everything very good for you guys. So the next question's from Naomi. She says, I read somewhere that coffee paper can damage the photos. How would you secure that it doesn't? And that's what I have read as well. Coffee dyed paper is not archival safe. I think I'm saying that term right. And from what I've heard, it can break photos down. I have been using coffee dyed paper for probably 7 years, and in my oldest journals I don't have any issues with my photos. But if you want to be sure, because for me a lot of the memory keeping is about how I feel in the moment. I do a lot of journaling that I don't usually do on coffee dyed paper, but sometimes I do, and again I don't have any issues with, or I have not seen any issues with that fading. But I'm not really so worried about the long-term goal because I do have a lot of my really special pictures not in like a junk journal like the original. And so I would look into perhaps keeping your photos on a page where they're not going to be directly touching coffee dyed paper, or you can use like a plastic protector for your photo, again, if that's something that you're worried about. Beatrice asks, I might have already asked this, but is there a way to tell if something is vintage? Not books, because those are dated. I'm wondering because at a thrift shop, I wouldn't have any idea. And how are you coloring the handmade paper? So that's a really good question, and to be honest, the only way that I have ever looked into something like that is by Googling the item the best I can to try and see if I can find a similar piece, and then doing a little research from there. I don't do a ton of thrifting and an antique shopping, so I'm probably not the best person to ask about this. But the other thing that I have done is when I'm shopping at more like an antique shop versus like Goodwill, if I have a question about a specific item, a lot of times it seems like the store owner has some kind of idea, at least where it came from, or what year it's from. And so that would be another option you could ask if you're at a store like that. She also wanted to know how I was coloring the handmade paper. I thought I may have left some clips in on the on that, but I actually have another Q&A coming up where I go over some last minute tips of hand dyeing the papers, and I show in there that I'm really just adding watered down paint or sprays directly to the water bath. So that's what I've been doing. So Erlene asks, best tips for beginners. What organization ideas can you share and simplest ways to put them together? Well, I'm not always organized, and if you guys saw my recent craft room organization video, you're going to see that I am not always super organized, but I do find it much easier to work when you know where things are, and I personally like to use containers or bins that are open so you can see what's in them, because for me, even if I have a label on the box or whatever, I'm less likely to go to that or look in it if it's covered up. So when you're organizing, I would say to try to have like a main area or cart where you will have your most used items or any items that you want to be using in that visible. And tips for beginners, I guess I would just say, honestly, just go for it. Try, if we're talking about journal making here, try something that's simple. I have lots of the easiest junk journal tutorial ever videos on my channel, but a lot of other YouTubers do as well. Just try something easy to start out with and just go for it, because that's what's going to help you get started. Carolyn asks, how do we get started writing in our journals? Well, for me, I just write in it. I know that it can be hard for some people to kind of break into a journal, but I would say just go for it. She also says she wants to write simple observations or facts, but she doesn't know how to organize it. Well, she's afraid that she might ruin it, but it's going to not get any use if you don't do it. You can always cover up a mistake. Say you start writing in it and you didn't like what you wrote, you can cover that up with some scrapbook paper. And if you're really, really worried, then I would say write on a separate piece of paper and then you can glue that into your book. I do a lot of my journaling, I guess, on more like a journaling card or something like that, and then I place it into my journal. But that's how I would say. And then just decide how you want to organize. Do you want it to be dated, or do you want it to be different sections? And maybe that could help you get started. So Vicky says, I'm new to journaling. I got into it by watching videos and thought how cool and what a great art. I've made altered books. I've made journals by adding my own papers. I have a wonderful Dollar Tree in my area. I feel like I have no style. What do you do to get started? How do you come up with a theme? Okay, I definitely felt like I didn't have a style in the beginning, and you don't, because you have to find your style. You really have to find your style. So I would start by working on things that you're drawn to. Find a style that you really, really love, something you resonate with, and try that out, because when you try it out, you might find that that's not your style. Maybe you just like looking at it. Try a different style. You really just have to try, you have to craft, and you have to be creative to find your style. The last question that I'm going to answer on this video is from Emma. She says, top 10 tips for starting filling a journal for newbies. Okay, I did come up with 10 tips, but they're a little bit more general. So I'm going to just go over them, and hopefully they pertain to what she's asking. Number 1, keep it simple. So when that pertains to starting and filling a journal, like I said, keep it simple with what you're putting into the journal. Don't overdo it and don't overthink it. Number 2, just go for it. again, I guess that's kind of the same one, but don't overthink it. You just got to do it rather than sitting there and thinking about it for too long. Number 3, try things that you love. When you're watching a video or looking at pictures on Instagram and you're like, oh, I really, really love that, try that style and see if it works for you. Number 4, don't overbuy things. There are so many, ephemera packs and like decorated journaling cards and things. And it can be really overwhelming when you end up buying too many supplies. So just don't overbuy. I know that I do a lot of hauls and I show you guys a lot of Amazon videos. And, while I am showing you that I buy a lot of things, you have to remember, like, number 1, I have almost 80 patrons. Number 2, I really do this as my full-time job now. So I go through supplies a ton. I am trying to share deals with you guys and great buys, but you really have to kind of set a limit for yourself, whatever that might be. Number 5, maybe challenge yourself. Do one project at a time and make sure that you complete that project before you finish it. I'm going a little bit off of what she was asking specifically, but I couldn't think of 10 just for that. Number 6, don't compare yourself. Don't compare your work to other people's work. Your style is important and it is your style. If you don't have a style yet, still don't compare yourself, because whatever you're doing is just as important as what they're doing, no matter what the outcome is. Number 7, join some Facebook groups that have to do with junk journaling. You can get lots of ideas, and that takes us to number 8, where you can try a swap. If you are feeling stuck, doing a simple swap can help, and that there's all kinds of swaps in junk journaling groups, things like where you're doing a tag swap or a junk journal swap or something like that, and that can really, I think, kind of motivate you because you have to finish by a certain time and you're making it for someone else. Number 9, really try not to stress about crafting. It's supposed to be a relaxing thing. It's supposed to help with anxiety, at least it does for me. And so if it's becoming stressful, that is telling you to, number 10, take a break. It's okay to take a break from crafting and creating, and we all need a break from it sometimes. So that is all. I hope that these questions helped you guys in some way. Don't worry if your question was not answered. It will be coming up in a future video. I have 2 more coming. And if you guys liked this Q&A, I'll be sure to do some more in the future. I hope that you guys have a lovely day. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.